for those that haven't or aren't familiar with Egnyte, quite not small by any measure. We've been around since 2007. Lots of employees across multiple offices, 4 in the US, an office in the UK, Poland, and India. And then we do know data like very well. We've got lots of files under management. And then as far as our focus around AEC and even owners for that matter, we are growing rapidly and largely because of our focus in this sector, of course, as Annalisa said, which I have the privilege of leading the strategy for. So we're very focused and very committed to the industry. Of course, me, my team, Aaron Vorwerk is on with us as well, among many others are again dedicated for the sector. In terms of like who might you be familiar with that use Egnyte, we of course have many familiar logos. We also don't see this as a one-size-fits-all, meaning we do understand the needs of architecture customers, engineering customers, general contractors, specialty contractors, also owners for that matter. They're uniquely different, but we have segment leaders for each of these subsegments. But quite proud of the many thousands of logos we have worldwide. I would even take that a step further and say in all 7 continents. So this is in Antarctica of all places, even in Alaska. So it does tell you a little bit about sort of the pervasiveness, the accessibility to your data, all the way down to your files and folders, practically from anywhere in the world at this point. So to level set a couple of statements here to sort of just kind of warm up into the topic, but I think this statement is really encapsulate a lot of what's happening today in our space, right? The structures we see reaching for the skyline or roadways pointing to the horizon are not just feats of design and engineering, but archives of data, right? We're talking about data today. I think everyone's starting to realize, you need data, especially if you want to do something around AI. And the truth of the matter is we've got a lot of data. Every firm respectively has lots of data. And so now it's like, how do we best groom that data, organize that data, and prepare for the next phase? But in between that, what are the risks and what are the ways it's hurting you today? One statement I do want to put out here that I don't think is necessarily shocking, but I think it is quite telling of where we're headed, is that among the designing and engineering and building and operating that your respective firms are doing, in many ways you're also a data company. Egnyte clearly is a data company through and through, but as we work along with our partners and customers, they're also we would say are data companies. And this graph on the right hand side is very telling, for which we looked at our thousands of customers or customer base and said looked at the average amount of storage a customer needed as they came aboard in each year since 2018. And you could see the graph is quite the growth of the line is quite telling of the fact there's a lot of data. And again, not a surprise, but from 2018, the average customer needed about 3 terabytes of data. Fast forward to 2023, the average customer now needs 25 terabytes of data. That's massive growth. That's an 8x growth. A terabyte, just for reference sake, is like 5,000 Stephen King novels, right? So if you know the Stephen King novels, they're not little, they're quite thick. 5,000 of those is 1 terabyte. So you've got firms now, especially in our world, that are needing an average of 25 times that as they come aboard onto our platform. But lots of data, clearly. And what's driving these? So again, these hopefully are not shocking for folks, but a lot of cloud-based collaboration now, more and more. Of course, our friends over at Autodesk, Procore, if you're in construction, there's so many other cloud-based solutions in the market today that it's everywhere, right? So you got stuff in many places. The next driver is proclivity to save everything. I think any AEC firm, especially the ones that we deal with, they've got a lot of data, a lot of old data. So, and there's a rhyme or reason for we know at some point you might need to go back to a building 10 years later, or revisit an intersection or a roadway or bridge because it needs to be redone. And so there is a natural tendency to want to save everything. But again, that has a consequence, which is now you need more storage. Your IT counterparts, if there's any IT folks in here, you're asking for more storage budget year over year. But yeah, there is this culture, we'll call it, that we need to save things and save things into perpetuity. Mergers and acquisitions are another thing that we're seeing quite a bit now, a lot in the engineering sector, really than others right now. But the fact that companies are acquiring other companies and so forth, and therefore inheriting a lot of data. So there's a lot of just data movement in those kinds of activities. And then data intensive processes is a big one. We all are seeing laser scanning point cloud, 4K. We have one of our architecture customers are doing 8K video now. Bigger Revit models, bigger models in general. So we know this is a big deal too. And then the last, which is I think not necessarily on a lot of minds, but is certainly becoming more and more important, is compliance. And then retention, document retention needs. And the most extreme example that we're seeing right now is over in the UK, for which now any contractor or design firm, for that matter, that deal with fire and safety systems in high-rise residential buildings are required to keep those documents for 30-year retention horizon, right? So that's very extreme, and there's potential jail time that's being attached to that law that's now in effect. But we're also seeing now that it's just the law, or it's owner required in many cases. And so we'll go through a quick few examples and we'll kind of peel into each one a little bit deeper. But as the title and kind of the theme of this is, what are the risks? So we've established a lot of data for multiple reasons. It's unavoidable, but there are things that are happening, and hopefully, you're recognizing these in your respective firms. But the first is, the sensitive data in the wrong place, right? Sensitive data could mean personal information, health information, could even mean customers under NDA if you're doing work for the military or Google or an Amazon or a Meta, and any of those under NDA type customers, right? Just having that in the wrong place is very likely to be happening, and of course creates risk, violation of NDAs, for example, leakage of data that shouldn't be out in the public, things like that. Sensitive data, again, now, but accessible by too many. So you might have it in the wrong place. And now it's like, who can access it? Is it your internal staff? Is it your external staff, external project stakeholders that you're partnering with, the owners, the other customers downstream? And then for how long should they be accessing it within just the confines of when the project is happening? And what about, years after that? And so the questions of, okay, accessibility, who has access to it for how long, becomes another big risk. Unused, or sometimes called dark data, is another area here to consider, where firms are collecting lots of data pretty much every day, for example, lots of projects. And in reality, and we'll touch upon this in a later slide, but a lot of that data goes unused. And so, you have a lot of data. Think about if a ransomware breach happens, that's exposed. But you've just gone through the effort of collecting, right, organizing some of that data, and it never gets touched again. So there is a productivity impact in this case. Duplicative data or unclear data ownership. This is the version control issues. Sometimes we call data sprawl. And then there's the ownership. Once you shared it, maybe it's email attachments, maybe you've sent it around. Someone leaves, someone comes on board. If you're a contractor and a superintendent or project manager changes over, the ownership of the data becomes very fuzzy, and that can create problems downstream. And then overexposed to data theft or ransomware attack. This is another one that in the headlines a lot you see, ransomware especially, right? And so going back to the ideas that, hey, we're saving everything, and let's just take the other side of the argument now. If there's a very bad breach, and you're already saving everything, that breach now that ransomware breach will now have potentially taken everything, right? So the keys to the kingdom kind of a thing. If you don't want all of it taken, you probably want to start figuring out, if a ransomware breach occurs, how much is exposed. Data theft, those are internal threats. Someone's leaving and, they're deciding to download a bunch of data before they leave. They take more than well, they shouldn't be taking any, but they're taking more than zero is not a good result. So lots of risks that we can say is happening. That for the most part, all of it really, that Egnyte customers don't really have that issue. Quick poll. So we're going to do this really. Okay, we do have the poll. Figured out. Okay, cool. So we just before we dive into the next few slides, we'll have three quick polls. But the first one is, asking the audience here if you can just quickly comment your sense of data growth in the past 5 years. And if you're not IT, that's okay. Maybe you might characterize or liken this to like how many more folders I now have to click through, or how many more different apps I have to click through. But has that been more, which I would say most would say is. So it looks like we're getting a stream of results coming in right now. But just want to again set the stage for the next couple of slides. Okay, cool. So we got some good responses here, and that's fair. I think not sure, but really high is the most common answer, right? I didn't expect people to be precise here, but there is an overall feeling that there is a lot more data. The pandemic did things to do that, but as you saw from our graph, in 2020 to 2023, the data growth story didn't stop, and so. Great to see people responding to that. And again, indicative of the industry and of course what we're seeing as well. Great. Moving on, thank you for answering the poll, is then the risks around multi-cloud sprawl. So again, we're going to go a little bit deeper on the first few bullets I just went, but project information spread over numerous systems now, right? We've got, again, Procore, our friends at Procore, Autodesk, and maybe a dozen or so or more other systems you may respectively be using, but that's a risk where now you don't recall what version is where, time is being wasted as a result. And again, someone leaves, someone comes on board, other stakeholders involved. You've got now no longer clear line of sight onto where that project information is. Sometimes you might call it single source or system of truth or record of truth, a system of record. And so that's not clear, and that can result in some real problems, errors on the project, rework, other issues like that. Data ownership and stewardship. Okay, so we just mentioned again, as other stakeholders get involved, as owners and as your other downstream customers, as data is getting passed around, again, who owns this? Who should have it at the end or after the project? And then again, duplicative data becoming more rampant. The fact that you've got versions of specifications and drawings, RFIs, and they're not always in the same platform is again resulting in wasted time, productivity, potential errors down at the project level. Okay, next poll. How many apps do you rely on for design or construction tasks? So we can bring the next poll up, or do we have the next poll ready? Oh, I have it. Let me see.
Yes, we do. We can share it, the results over here. You see it?
Looks like we just had the one. I see only just the one from the one we just did. Was there?
Sorry. Here, I can read it to you, Kevin. How many apps do you use for design and project management tasks? So it looks like 50% said 3 to 5.
Oh, okay.
33% said 5+, and only 17% said 1 to 3.
Oh, wow. So the 17% is loving life. They don't really have a lot of different apps unless it's all in spreadsheets possibly. But yeah, I think that just as sort of the response of the poll is, again, illustrating the point, lots of apps, lots of different platforms, lots of places where your data can hide. And it just creates, again, confusion, wasted time, and general productivity issues. So again, we're going to go just again doubling down here, risk of conflicts and duplication. Offline copies are the easy button, right? Email attachments. I think we have a poll right after that one about email attachments, but that's the problem, right? Once that thing is attached and out the door, no control, who has it after that? And then of course, when there's a new version coming out, how do you make sure everyone else who got that first attachment has the right version, or they're not going, or that they keep going back to the old version? Risk of losing information due to out of sync overwritten files, right? So we're losing, new versions on drawings. We're losing, you're writing a spec, or you're doing a change order, or an RFI, or a submittal, and that gets overwritten. And so this is a big problem now as we've got more people at different locations. Maybe they're at a project site, maybe they're at a home office, maybe they're working from home, or the main office, or some satellite office. but this is happening more and more now as firms are getting are spreading out. The confidence and time eroded is impeding operation. So again, I'm not sure if I am on the right drawing version or the right specification. And time is the ultimate killer here, right? Obviously, the industry gets a lot of bad rap for being, really poor at productivity. And there are many factors. Don't get me wrong. But this is a major factor for which, what folder, how many versions, where did I last send it, where did I last receive it, becomes a downstream effect. That does have that root cause of, we had a conflict, we had duplicative data. Okay, and then last poll, on average in a week, how many project-related documents go through an email attachments? So again, just bringing it back to this idea that email attachments are still probably pretty commonplace these days. It's the easy button. And hopefully you're able to send some results back to Annalisa to share. But just wanted to get a quick sense of, is it a few a week that are attachments, or is it a lot a week, or is it none because you've got all your systems in place and everything's running through systems?
So Kevin, it looks like 83% said 5+, and only 17% said 1 to 5, and nobody said none.
Okay, so the none is the nirvana, maybe we'll call it, where you're just shooting links out, and that's something you can do at Egnyte. But links is the ultimate, right? Because links don't all links for the most part always get you to the right version, right? For example, on Egnyte, if you're sharing a link to a drawing, that link, whenever it's clicked, will always bring that recipient to the latest version of the drawing. And it's not unique to us, but link sharing is a much better way to go. And I'm sure some of you are doing it to some degree, but again, you also say that, well, the flip side of that is there's still a lot of email attachments going around. And again, due to the point of attachments, right? Once they are out the door, it's potentially already obsolete, right? You can't control who else is getting it, if it's being forwarded to other people, if it's being, saved and pinned or bookmarked, and that person's going to that file over and over and over again, but that file just became, out of date, 24 hours ago. That's a real problem. And so email attachments, as we saw in the poll, are still quite common. It is the easy button, but it does have a lot of risks, again, around versioning, access control, security along those things. No oversight. So again, I can't control, once I put an attachment on and I send it to my partners, are they forwarding it? Is it competitive bid information potentially, or confidential material or labor rates, or confidential designs, anything that says, okay, if I'm putting this in an attachment and I'm sending it, once it's out the proverbial digital door, it's now out in the Wild West. I have no control over who, what, and when it's being used. And then no version control, right? There's no versioning in email attachments. And so again, the risk of someone getting and using an out-of-date drawing or specification becomes really high, and it happens pretty much every day. Okay, so now that we kind of established the idea that we've got lots of risks, it's become inherent in the industry, it's become sort of normalized. Email attachments are a part of it. There's lots of data everywhere is contributing to this. We now have this hype, well, maybe it's not hype exactly, but we have a lot of noise around how AI is going to be great. And AI has a lot of different applications. Design, is one, which we're not talking about here. The other element or dimension of AI for what we see is more about your content and data management. So design, that's pretty cool. And there's a lot of people doing the AI and design and authoring side of things. We're more focused, and where we think there is the bigger, maybe equal, if not bigger opportunity, is around your data and the management of data, accessibility to the data, analyzing the data, and all that such. But you see headlines pretty much every day, every week now, that especially for this industry, right? So unavoidable. And I wanted to take a little bit of fun here, and this is actually an event we did with Legos recently. But we likened this idea of, like, you got data. Data is like Legos, and you often will go through 3 different stages of data management. The first is denial, meaning I got a lot of data, don't know where it's all at, don't know who's all accessing it. It's just there. I'm not really seeing the problem. And then we have firms that are sort of in the middle now. It's like, okay, yep, I got a lot of data. I know it's a problem because my IT team is asking for more and more storage. Or as an end user, I'm clicking through more and more and more folders every day, or more or different applications. And then the last phase is acceptance. Right now, okay, we've got the storage, we know it's a problem, but where do we go from here? And so just again, we kind of a little bit of fun with the Legos, and we'll have one more Lego reference here. But I think there's a lot of correlation between Legos and your data, right? If you have a big pile of Legos and you're trying to build something without any instructions, without any roadmap, without any sense of classification, your Lego building is going to be really messy. And a lot can be said with your AI and your end result of AI, right? You got all that data, you don't know what's in it, you don't know how much of it's in there, you don't know who's been accessing, who can access it. Your end result's not going to be really great. And so to that, just one more sort of, or two more points here is, and this is something that this is floating around some of the Microsoft channels. Isn't something that we made, but I think it's very telling and very profound of what this is pointing toward. So this is a quote from a Microsoft champion, not Microsoft themselves, but a Microsoft champion that I think really encapsulate kind of the risks here when it comes to AI and data. If you've got old, inaccurate info, and I think all of us are guilty of that, it can lead to really bad output that no magical box can get around. This is in reference to Microsoft Copilot. So you could quite, the emoji on the left, and then Copilot in the middle, and then the result is not desirable, not desirable. But this is again predicated on what is the state of your data, right? If you're in denial around, I got access control problems, I got tons and tons of data that need to be moved out or archived or retained, right? You're going to get very not great results. I would call from when you get Copilot and AI plugged into the mix. And to also qualify, Copilot is a generic term, but Microsoft Copilot is definitely very popular. So if you have, I'm guessing most of you have Microsoft installations. I'm sure you're getting a lot of notes around Copilot from Microsoft. Egnyte has a different Copilot, but just the same principles apply though. If your state of your data is not great, your Copilot will not magically make it better. And what's probably worse is it'll just give you very bad results. So one more last reference to Legos and data, but I think there's a lot to be said here around your mileage may vary, right? If you're thinking AI is the greatest thing ever, let's go plug it in and get there as fast as we can. I'm going to tell you that's probably not going to lead you to a great result. And so just to kind of tie all the different things together here, data sprawled across multiple repositories. That's like that big random chaotic pile of Legos. Where do you go from there? It's really tough. No metadata standardization. Metadata is tags under file. So for example, a metadata tag like for a drawing file could be it was a project manager that was on it, or this is a type of project we were on. Those metadata tags are going to be very important when you think about how AI is actually going to be able to digest and make sense and connect all your different pieces of data. Uncontrollable growth. So every day, new data is coming in, new projects, new designs, new specifications, all those good things that are all coming in every day. And so we need to set a standard or a precedent to start to control that and organize it. And no instructions or inventory, right? So inventory means how much data do you have? How much of it is touched in the last year? Who's been accessing it? Is there any confidential information embedded in my data set, right? So that's the inventory sort of concept here. So without thinking through these things or ignoring all these different concepts, your AI experience and your output is really going to be suspect at best. Okay, turning it over to sort of the last phase now is, where does AI help with data control, right? So these are some of the things that we would say are considerations, but not only to ask, or really to ask, anyone that's touting or offering AI solutions. First of which is, this is something you should be asking, folks like us, which we have great answers to, but anyone, Microsoft to that matter, is how do permissions align between AI and your users, right? This is important because AI by nature needs to have access to everything. So it's consuming all your data to a degree. But then as your users are interacting with this AI, should your users be able to actually ask questions that they normally shouldn't be allowed to ask. One example might be like, what is the average pay rate for my department? And pretty much that should not be something that anyone should be able to get an answer to, but in many respects, the AI would have consumed a lot of information. So you want to have this question or have a concept around how does your AI provider align the permissions of your end users to what the AI will actually allow to be exposed when they get prompted, right? So there's a big one that I think a lot of it's missed or a lot of it's just kind of glossed over, but it's a great question that you all should consider with any AI provider. Next one is, can files or folders be selectively included or excluded? Certain projects. We know military projects, for example, very, very soon, come October next year, need to definitely be excluded, need to be, in fact, segregated into a completely different data storage environment. But again, you've got this AI thing running rampant through your whole entire data environment. Should you include or exclude folders? Yes, you should. And how much control do you have over that would be another big question. And then data leakage is a big one. How can my company prevent data leakage? Does the AI solution provider log your data? For how long? Does it go offshore ever? That's a big question. Everyone's logging the data, but then there's a rhyme or reason to like how long. If they're telling you forever, that's not good. If they're telling you for many years, it's probably still not good. So you want to have a definitive response from your AI partners, like, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it whatever? But then also say, well, why do you need it for that long, right? So us included, we will log, but we don't share, we don't go offshore. Your data remains in your container, as an example. But again, ask that from any of your solution providers, from a data leakage prevention standpoint. Does the AI solution provider train their models on other models or share with your partners? This is a little bit of the unspoken things that are happening now in the AI spaces. You've got a lot of startups, but by virtue, these startups don't have a lot of data. Remember, my earlier slide is we've got billions and billions of files under management. We can't look at all those data, but we do know we have a lot of data for which each of our respective customers can actually tap into. When you think about these other early stage startups, you do have to wonder and question, where are they getting all that data from? What are they training their models on, right? And what partners, if any, are being shared? So there is a lot of that fine print you want to get through and say, okay, again, who are you sharing my data with? How are you training your models? Because those answers can be very telling for which data leakage is very possible or not possible. And then what processes exist to ensure accuracy of results? Egnyte as a good example here. We have our customer advisory boards. We have our end user groups. We have beta testers. So for us, and because we have such a huge focus on the sector, we have our industry customers getting very early access to these solutions, but also helping provide feedback to us as to whether the results were actually relevant or not relevant. And then where we start to see AI actually show up and be useful now is a couple of examples. I do want to qualify this and point to a data study that Deloitte and Autodesk did, which I thought was very telling in a lot of ways, which is one of the quotes was, construction professionals spend at least 11.5 hours per week researching and analyzing data. You're wasting a lot of data just looking for stuff, right? So taking it back to the headline here, focus efforts on acting on data, not searching for it. This is, I think, a pretty major, potentially ROI statement, right? If we're in agreement that say, hey, I, as an individual, I'm a designer, estimator, project manager, what have you, and I'm spending an inordinate amount of time every week clicking through folders, comparing different files. That's not productive work, but that's work that's costing the company. This is where the promise of AI will start to eliminate a lot of that. In what ways? Firstly, it's chat, right? We've seen ChatGPT. A lot of us have seen that. It's interface or Q&A style interface to your data, folders, files. You have a specification document, for example. You might open up a little chat now on the side, says, hey, what is my standard of care? Or what are my seismic conditions or paint hardness ratings for this project? And it will give you a response. And you can also choose which folders I wish to have the chat against, right? Not all folders, but maybe I have a specific project set of project folders that I want to ask against. And then you get the precise answers, but with also the excerpts from the actual document. So this is where now, and not unique to us, we do have this as well. But yeah, you now have a folder and you can start a chat interface with your folder, and it's your data and only your data, and you're going to get responses from your data. So that's a really great thing, that you're saving time. You're not worrying about, is it on page 320 or page 805 on your spec file? It's actually just ask, get an answer, but also get the excerpt back. And that saves a ton of time. Great example on that one. The other one is the other more specialized, we call knowledge bases. This is not something that's quite available today, but we do know this is coming very, very soon, where you can now gain insights across project-related content, multiple projects, analyze your design file specs, other project content for deeper insights. An example could be, where are all the projects we did a certain suspension bridge build? What projects did we have that had a spiral staircase? What projects did we have that had a particular environmental condition or soil issue, something like that, where now you're looking at a larger corpus of data and asking questions against it. Again, your data that's not being shared. Save the time. The other area we see the opportunity for AI is your content management, right? So not only chatting with your content that was in the previous slide, but now managing it in new and meaningful ways. Same study from Deloitte and Autodesk. Construction firms only analyze and act on 1/3 of the data they collect. This is, again, pointing back to the notion of dark data or unused data. You got a lot of it and you lost it. And yeah, it's in your folder, so not literally lost it, but you lost sight of it. And so where we think there's opportunity, or we have opportunities, is under tagging, metadata tagging to be more technical, but it is being able to add tags to documents by what's in it at scale. So that kind of headline on top, manage content by what it is, not where it is a pretty big deal, right? We say, hey, it's a drawing because it's in the drawings folder. It's a spec because it's in a spec folder. Well, that only goes so far, and it breaks down very easily. But now we're saying, hey, is this file, regardless of a DWG or PDF, what is this file? And we have now ways to say, well, this file is a drawing, regardless of the name. This file is a specification. This file is an RFI, and it will tag your files. So no matter what folder it's living in, the opportunity now to tag and say, where are all my spec files or drawings or what have you, no matter what folder it is, you'll now get those results. So you're not losing sight of data. Classify, control your project data. So this is like customers under NDA, where you want to make sure that those project documents are not sitting out in a public folder or not being shared in ways it shouldn't be shared. But there's now ways to control that by meta tagging confidential projects against your documents. Automate life cycling and segregation. If you're doing military work, CMMC is a really great example of military security standards now for data storage, but being able to segregate, because now you can say, well, this has a FCI or CUI stamp. That's a big sign that this is military work. It needs to be in a different, it cannot live in your main environment. It needs to be now segregated into a new environment. So tagging those documents by identifying a CUI or an FCI, those tags are very good signs of a metadata tagging that now can be used to control where it actually is being stored. Images. We see millions of images landing in our system every week. Lots of images. Of course, we're design and construction and projects and progress photos, all kinds of things. But now we're able to actually tag images at what is seen at scale. So back to the example of suspension bridge photos or spiral staircase photos. You can now tag them. So you can say, don't care what folder, don't care what project, just show me all my photos that had an HVAC system or all my photos that had a suspension bridge or spiral staircase. And then when you could do that, you can now search for similar images. So I've now found one example of a suspension bridge. Find me all other images that look like this across my project data. And then you can search for images also in a certain location. So Kansas City, I was just in Kansas City a few weeks ago, San Diego airport, things like that. So those are big projects, but no matter where you are, when you're taking photos on a job site, if you're doing it on a mobile device, it's already automatically embedding a GPS coordinate. Now we're able to actually search your photos by coordinates. Where are all my photos at 123 Main Street? And so now you're not losing sight of your data. You're able to find things no matter what folder there are. And so that's a really beautiful thing when we think about, okay, let's use all the data you have and control it and secure it in ways that you couldn't do it before. And then as a visual example, this is an example from our product, but again, not necessarily unique, but this is an Egnyte Copilot where you do have that chat style example. You've pointed in our case the knowledge base assistant to a collection of folders. It could be building codes, it could be design standards, you name it, you point it to whatever you want. We don't care. You point it to your own data, and you're able now to initiate a chat interface like you see on the right-hand side. So that's one quick example that you would expect to find for a lot of folks, but we have it embedded in our platform too. And then the last example here before I finish up is specification management. And so we do have now a module. Actually, it's free. You see the QR code or the URL on the bottom for which you can actually use this for free. You can actually use this forever. We don't charge for this one. It's a free app, but you load in a PDF of a master format specification and immediately get a version that's broken down, that's hyperlinked by divisions, by submittals, by materials, and actually share this to any of your team. But this is a nice opportunity to kind of get a sample of what Egnyte can do around specification management. But again, this is something more about really the AI aspects of, what does a lightweight, this is not even a super advanced version, but this is very, very light of, okay, just simply breaking down a 2,000-page specification document in like 10 seconds into divisions, submittals, and materials sections. That's happening right now, and it's free. And again, if anyone wishes to try it, you can sign up over on the right-hand side of the QR code or the link on the bottom. But Spark specification management is another great, again, application for where AI and content management and, of course, saving time, increasing productivity is happening as well. That's really it. So just to summarize, and then we could take some questions here, but we have a lot of data. You have a lot of data, right? So unlock the power through the tagging, through the ways that now AI can actually help you find it all. Harness the data you already have. Understand the scope for which AI exists among your content, right? Enable staff to act on the data versus managing it. And that's all I have.